Well, Lorca, we're rolling. Thank you for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself and how do you describe what you do and um, where do you want to start on your journey? Because you're on one.
Yes. I am irretrievably curious about and delighted by a something that I call resilience and that probably isn't nameable. Um, that this question of how can we aid ourselves in filling ourselves with life. And there are so many things in a world that can drain us from being able to be here with others and with the world in the way that we would love to all of the time. And so um, I have a primary filter of wanting to know what are the things that make me more alive, more resourced, more full, and able to be with wherever I am and with whoever I am, and to be able to give and heal and invent and play in the ways that I would like to all the time.
That's so cool.
And by extension, uh, completely fascinated by how this shows up in the world in general. So how is it that other people do this? How do organizations do it? How do communities do it? How is our planet doing it? And what are all the things that we have to work with uh, in either direction?
When you say, how do we aid ourselves in filling ourselves with life?
Mhm.
I guess, would you describe life as energy? Like, how do you describe
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Life energy.
Uh-huh.
Um, I I like to be fairly open in how that gets described, just because uh, I really want to meet people where they're at. Uh, and but the dominant metaphor that I use most often is that of a mountain lake. And if you think of a mountain lake ecosystem, and you can notice that it's been there for millennia, and that it uh, has characteristics of complexity that includes lots of pieces that feed each other. And but at its heart, it's actually just a vessel. It's just a container where water can gather, and then from there, the water can go other places. And so, if I'm a lake, if I'm treating myself as a lake, I can say, how full am I right now? Do I have three quarters of what's possible to give to the moment? Do I have half? Am I really depleted? Am I overflowing? And inevitably, the more of the time in which I can be beautifully overflowing, then I show up really well in the ways that I want to, as a parent, as a teacher, as a farmer, um, in my community, and as a citizen. And so that to me is more important than anything else.
That's so cool. And I love them. I love that analogy and metaphor. My fiance is the one that connected us and told me about you, and she's now that you bring back that metaphor, she's told me about you so many times that I didn't realize she was talking about the same person, because I think she had another, maybe quote that you said, and tell me if this is correct, but you build resilient humans.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I I like to think of it as growing. I grow resilient humans.
that might have
I
been
garden them.
okay.
But I also think of it as an architecture, um, that resilience, the way I understand it, is we can design for it, and we are very often actually also designing against it. So professionally, a lot of that work ends up being going in and evaluating where there are elements that architect against our well-being through time. And so, but it's an art, and it's a playground, and I don't know, maybe even a cosmology. Um, but every way in which we are meeting what um, is relevant.
And it's gonna be pretty subjective to every individual, organization,
Yeah.
etcetera.
So what that means, actually, unfortunately, is that the very first invitation to resilience is actually your capacity to self-knowing, and which for some people is fascinating and for other people is less comfortable. And so part of that work too is helping it make it interesting for people, and then giving them a place from which they can be with what they find, um, without self-judging, without muddying the waters, so that they can really start from where they are, right, rather than where they wish they were or think they should be, or
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like that. There's a guy I've followed for a while, and I guess been more recently. His name's Joe Hudson, and he says, I'm paraphrasing, but it's
Hmm.
something along the lines of, um, it's a lot. I don't know if he says it's a lot more useful, a lot more valuable. Instead of like seeking to improve yourself, seek to know yourself better. And I
Yeah,
really like that because I feel like if you can go from there, you can kind of improve in any direction from there. But that's like the
yeah.
foundation of any type of growth or improvement.
This is really elegant design, right?
Yeah.
Um, we we can find ourselves trying to improve things that aren't actually even true, so that's um, not useful. And there's a gentleness um, that I think a lot of people have been, um, for one reason or another, not able to taste in what it's like to be with themselves. And it doesn't mean that they aren't going to make changes, and it doesn't mean that they can't see things. But it does mean um, that this can be designed as something that can occur without force, and certainly without violence. And if we went back to the lake idea, if you conceive of the lake that you are right now, and you can just muscle test, say, for how much water is in it right now, this afternoon. And let's say that you did say, gosh, I'm a little lower than I thought. Like, I was feeling good, but if I really ask myself right now, a little lower than I thought, and maybe I will make some adjustments this afternoon. Maybe I'll dial something back. Maybe I'll reach out to someone who lifts me. Maybe uh, I'll take a break, or maybe I just need more water. And so at that point, you have actually created a shift that's completely based on information, and without shaming or shoulds, or so it's a very beautifully natural um, shift rather than one that isn't. So then it arrives simply from knowing something different than you had been paying attention to.
So when you think of this, what fills your lake, you're thinking broadly as, what type of people, what type of food, what type of actions, and this can be like pretty broad as to what fills this lake or
Hmm. I actually have over decades gotten a lot more precise about it.
okay.
In the same way that if you were a lake biologist, right, that you would see and notice a lot more than someone who is just hiking up to it. But broadly, the arenas I would get really curious about, either for myself or when I'm with somebody else or with an organization, is looking at the places where water is filling a lake, any lake, and the places where water is leaving it. So um, I think of, let's say, the glacial infill that comes from higher up on a mountain as like, what are the support and systems that are already in place? That right now you have the technology that you need for us to be here right now.
Mhm.
And you have the comfort and experience to be sitting with another person and send your voice out into the world. And you have a place to go home to, and you have the education that you have, and all of these kinds of things, even including things like the habits and the humans around you. You, if we were to sit down, if you were to sit down with someone else right after me, you don't have to go get any of those or figure it out. Like, it's there. So acknowledging what you already have and done can be really real. And then you could take a look at the weather and you could say, hey, how am I getting filled randomly? What are the things that are completely out of my control every day that lift, right? So powder days, sun,
Yeah.
right? Luck, someone lending you something that you needed. I don't know, scholarships, inheritances, beauty, right? And even things that I would even put privilege there, just so that you can tell the difference between things that are filling you at cost to somebody else and things that aren't. And and then we could map all of the ways in which all of the accumulated water that you have is leaving. Where is your attention and energy and time and resources going? And how much of it is beautifully intentional? How much of it is getting pulled out of you? Um, and and how I'm especially interested in the things that where your attention is getting or your energy, your water is getting pulled out of you in ways that you're not mapping. And so you're not accounting for energy loss. And therefore you're not able to show up in the way that you commit to, the way you intend to, the way you would love to. And so it's useful to look at the obvious things. Where am I committed to it for work and volunteering, and what is yours to tend, right? But it's also how much of your energy and time and mental real estate is getting taken up by things like pain or loss or stress or drama or promises that aren't getting made or met, or assumptions that are muddying the waters. All of these kinds of things um, are mappable and actually not necessarily that hard to clean up. So I really love that part of it. And and then lastly, take a look at what are the parts that are already inside you. And I think of these as springs, right? That come up underneath a lake and fill it. And they're mineral rich. And what are the things that persistently can can flood a lake with energy? And what is your creative life, right? What astonishes you? How close are you right now to a sense of purpose that's really current in your life as opposed to an old one? And how much compassion, real muscular compassion, are you living in so that you have the extra space to do any and all of these things and not have that taken up by the potentially really astonishing cruelty that can occur inside a single person's head.
Before we keep rolling with today's episodes, I want to tell you about someone who changed how we show up as a business. When clients land on our website, we hear the same thing over and over. It just feels right. Amy of Unbridled Form asked us questions we'd never thought to ask ourselves, helped us figure out the deeper identity underneath our services, and translated that into a brand world we're genuinely proud of. Our ongoing partnership is easily one of the best investments we've made. Learn more at unbridledform.com. Now back to the show. You've got this wisdom about you like you've been doing this for a while.
I have.
What was you just used the term muscular.
Yeah.
What was the rest of that? Muscular.
A muscular self-compassion.
Yeah. How would you describe what that is?
Mhm. Um, there's some really lovely work out in the world at this right now, but, uh, the it can be really beautifully described as, uh, taking a look for 3 components, and if all 3 of these are not there, it is not actually what we could call real. It doesn't have the impact of compassion, right? So, um in a nutshell, the first thing that has to be present, whether you're being truly compassionate with another person or with yourself, is you acknowledge the suffering. You say, that hurt, or you say, "That wasn't okay," or "I'm not all right with that." Um, and or to someone else, "That sounds painful. That must not feel good," right? So we acknowledge. And then the second part is acknowledging, that response and the feelings that are arising in the face of suffering are human, right? That there's a common humanity to whatever you're feeling, and that you're not weird, and it hasn't been going on too long, and you're not on a timetable. And the way you know this is can just generally ask, has any other human in a similar condition in the history of histories ever had this response? And you're like, yeah. So right now I'm being really human.
Mhm.
And then lastly, add kindness. So, if these three things are present, then um, you can feel how if you were being with someone and you did all three of those things, they would walk away better, lighter. And it's not used instead of taking action. In fact, you could even be firing someone and be just present to the fact that this is painful, and however they respond, they're perfectly normal in it. And I can be kind. In fact, I may even be kind by firing them, right? If it's not a good fit. But that I can acknowledge that I can use communications wisely. I can facilitate the process of leaving so that it can happen with respect. Um, and and then there's more in the world that doesn't have to be healed, so that we can heal things that haven't yet happened um, ahead of time. This is a very good design.
How do you do that?
uh, if I went right down to the heart of that question, I think part of it is being as clean as we can ourselves, right? That we are, if I'm an ecosystem, then the quality of the water that I have and that I hold and that I guard that's the ecosystem that you are in right now. And it's either harder or messier or more confusing or even, dangerous. Or it's something that just naturally by being in this ecosystem, you are the better for it. Um, and so this is where resilience is so beautifully tied into functional radiant leadership, in that I think it's really easy to describe for me the kind of leadership that I look for and teach is this question of how much life and innovation persistently occurs around this person, around this leader. And if you are a leader who is persistently uh, creating an ecosystem that diminishes um, the capacities and the aliveness of everything that you touch, um, that's not the kind of leadership that I am interested in. So, yeah, I think that tying those two things together is really uh, fascinating.
I love this lake metaphor. I was blessed to grow up on a farm,
There we go.
so I can just thinking in nature. I think of so many different things,
Yeah.
but it's so intelligent to think of when you kind of say, look at what already exists. How if you are this lake, the way it relates with the sun and the rest of the world, and like how do you first off just position yourself best based on what's already occurring,
Mhm.
and then you know like take advantage of how it exists and how it shows up in the world being yourself, and then how many things can you do in your life in every sense of it to make that flourish. And it's
Yeah.
such a cool concept. I was thinking of seasons too, because I think about the concept of seasons and how they relate to life, and what times of year is this lake going to be higher and lower just
Yeah.
naturally, and then
Yeah.
how do you balance those differences. And I already love this concept because it just my brain is like latching on and all the concepts. So
Yeah. It's fractal.
Yeah.
You can just keep going in and out and deeper and
Yeah.
higher.
It's fun to think about.
Mhm. Yeah.
So where I mean, how did you get into this? How much like where did this story start and where
Mhm. Yeah.
take it wherever you want and wherever I told you I'd listen to your TED talk today. Um so yeah, like please take this wherever you want to.
Okay. I will say that the lake model is one that I created for myself. Um, actually, in like sheer self defense. um, when I grew up um, with a family that spent a lot of time in the wilderness, and my father was a climbing guide and climber, and uh, I went away to boarding school, and I was part of the climbing team, and we went to climb Mount Hood, as had been a practice at our school for a lot of years. And uh, I was present on a climb where we went up in May, and we left early. We left in the middle of the night, actually, so that you could arrive at the summit uh, as the sun rose. And instead, what happened was a storm came in really fast and hit the group that I was in, and I was the last to turn around and go back down, and the others who kept on going um, ended up getting hit and caught in the storm and built a snow cave. And then they weren't found for the next 4 days. And when we did find them, we lost nine, two teachers and seven students, and uh, and instantly the lake that I had been um, was completely changed. And um, the analogy I use now is I think of it as having, if this beautiful lake gets hit by an asteroid, right? As happens.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden there, a lot of the life is damaged and changed, and the water flow is changed, and and I found myself in a situation where I was simultaneously both at the beginning of what could be a really beautiful life with those expectations, and this really hard thing. And I was being invited not only to hold all of that in one life, but had a front row seat to watching hundreds of other people do the exact same thing with different tools and different ways of being in the world. And I was, from very early on, I was very aware of that some of the ways in which some of the people and families were facing this much pain um, were ways in which I felt like this is really helpful. Like, we can't get away from this thing at all. We wake up in the morning and there it is. And once again, like day after day. And at the same time, as people started to make choices moving forward, there were certain things that people were doing and ways of being with each other that were really loving and really generous and compassionate, like truly compassionate, right? And then there were other people who were going other directions, who chose um, or didn't choose, or maybe it chose them, but um, just rage and blame um, and victimhood ultimately, right? Not, I mean, we were all victims of it, of the incident, but, claiming it and kind of holding on to it. And so simultaneously with coming to a place of trying to wrap myself around this was this curiosity about, if I'm not the first person on the planet to suffer, which I was not, um, who are all of the people in the world who have done this more beautifully and in a way that's self-honoring and honors others and that allows them to live um, in a really true way, and what are the things they do, and what are the things they don't do, and what are the tools that they put together for themselves that let them be in both really hard moments and then more beautiful moments. Um, and so I declared a toolbox and started collecting absolutely anything on any level that I felt would uh, help me. And there were a lot of things that I collected that helped me, but other ones didn't help me, but I collected them and added them to the toolbox anyway. And since then, this toolbox has become it's my work. It's my work toolbox, and I can curate from it to be with people who are being with different kinds of things. And I make games out of a lot of it. I love making resilience games and resilience building games. And I needed the lake initially because the the difficulty that I faced and that a number of us faced was that we were we were we were broken in some ways. Not permanently, but we had these outflows of energy or attention or emotion that could show up at any moment and demand help. Or like, I want you, pay attention to me. I need you to go, you know, go on a really long walk, or I need you to call this person, or I need you to hike, or all the things that grief asks of us. And either we can meet those and honor that, or, or we don't, because either something inside us wants to run away or because of circumstances. So, and yet life was reaching out to me as a young person who is adventurous and loved. And so, things like, hey, do you want to go to college this year? Do you want to take extra classes? Do you want to do this internship? Do you want to travel? And the answer to all of those always was yes, I want to. I want to be normal again. I want to do all the things that this planet affords. And I want to be of service. And, but it was all of those were completely dependent on how full the lake was. So my mouth, every time someone offered something, my mouth would say, sure. And then the lake would catch me up later and say, sorry, don't have enough water. And in those situations, I would have to apologize or renegotiate or say, can you ask me again next year? And I learned to trust the lake more than I trusted the other voices in my brain. And so it became this beautiful, more accurate check-in point where I could ask, do I have the emotional and the intellectual and all the ways, the heart to say yes to this thing and show up in the way that I've agreed to right now? Or do I need to listen to the lake saying, you need to refill a little bit more before we can say yes? And I can completely say that I sometimes listened to it and sometimes didn't, and every single time the lake was correct. The lake knows.
When you think of the lake as your body, would you describe that as something somatic that you feel?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then the voice might be the voice in your head that's just saying yes without kind of checking in. Just how do I actually
yeah.
feel?
I mean, I think we have a lot of voices in ourselves, right? And
I do.
yeah, right. And they sometimes they agree all the way, and sometimes they don't. But I think I think it certainly is a very useful practice to be checking in with each of them as much as possible, because if any one of them is ignored, that'll affect things, right?
Mm,
And so, and for some of us, that voice would be stronger in one voice, and for others it might be stronger. So you hear people say, "Oh, I just let my heart tell me everything, and then you know, or I go with my gut feelings all the time, uh, or my spirit tells me, or they just default operate above the neck, and
yeah.
like everything's, if it makes sense, I do it." So To add more balance into ourselves, we can, and then our bodies, right? This incredible mammal life that we have that is so rich and very often, by a lot of people, not fully experienced. Um, so the way we can, invite all the council members to the table and just do check in and say, what, where does everybody stand here? And does anyone have anything to contribute that hasn't been considered? And from there, we end up, I think, making uh, choices that have a wholeness to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is, for myself personally, because I'm very guilty of being essentially neck up.
Sure.
And when you think like there's certain things you go through, like grief that you're talking about, and you don't want to feel it. You just
Hmm.
kind of want to like disassociate from that and just
Yeah.
make it appear. But I've seen that same thing myself, as you say, yes, but
Hmm.
your body or your lake is like, we're not,
Yeah.
we're not there.
Yeah. I think, that is so. I think maybe a really useful thing to do is also to recognize at the table there is what I think of as a protector who could show up probably with any of those voices and side with them. But I believe large amounts of our entire human system are designed to protect us, to keep us alive, right? But it's not always to our advantage in the moment, because a protector is designed to say, that thing is unfamiliar, and so it could be really dangerous. So let's get distracted, or let's numb, or let's.
Yeah.
So on a cellular level, you all these little alarm bells are going off, and if you don't know yourself, and if you don't have the compassion to give all of your voices a chance to chime in and slow down, right? Create some spaciousness around the whole thing, then we become reactive creatures, and then we feed drama beautifully.
Yeah.
And are operating with a lot of blind spots, which those two things I think are really related.
And then you get back to that lake analogy of you're not like, are you just draining everything else
Yeah.
to like keep yours even
Hmm. Yeah.
at a minimum?
And the problem with that too is that if someone is persistently doing that, then I think of drama. Drama shows up for me, kind of geologically, atmospherically, as um, it's evaporative, right? It's water leaving your lake that is not going to be accessible to anybody to use for. It's like waste heat energy. It's not going to be accessible for any use, and for a long time. And in the meantime, your lake is getting lower and lower, but you can't see it, and you wonder why you're tired, or wonder why you don't feel very alive, or wonder why your relationships are flat. And so, being able to really beautifully meet how the dynamics of how you really are, the physics of your lake at any one moment, right, is the first invitation into exploring something really different.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And you were in high school when this
yeah.
accident happened.
I was a junior.
So you were like having these pretty profound thoughts about like seeing this experience, seeing how all these families are dealing with it and people you're in school with. Was there was there a lot of people that were, there with you, teaching you to understand what's
Hmm.
going on internally and externally along the way?
Yeah, I would say my experience was an experience all the way through of, I mean, with a few distinct, exceptions, but um, so loved. Yeah, it was a small school, um, and I lived there and lived in the dorms, and um, was I still to this day um, am connected to teachers and classmates and people who work there, and um, thinking about as we started to experience this rise of school tragedies that's occurred, um, I always have a very strong awareness of curiosity about whether or not, that school or that place or those kids had the good fortune to be in a community already that had health to it, or not. Because for me, if I was there decades ago and it still has the impact that it does on those of us who were there, um, from a context of community and love and support, a village, right? Um, then I can't help but think of the schools that didn't have that, and the what it would mean if people at large understood the years of response and recovery and meaning making that that is then gonna follow any incident like that.
Yeah, I feel like it can't be understated the value in connection and community
Mhm.
and what that does for
Yeah.
like, there's so many just different people I've met doing this. And I like what I think of is Warriors and Quiet Waters.
Mhm.
And they've like Brian and Liz, they both come on and talked about it and they always come back to that community
Yeah.
and that connection.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like that community there sounds like that was a
Mhm.
huge asset in
Yeah.
being able to understand that and go through that
Mhm.
experience.
I mean, all of the what we might call insanity that's happening today, I think one of the most powerful natural, um, counters to that is going to lie in community. It's a natural healing sanctuary, real community is. And and things can happen within it that we don't even understand as they're happening, but they're at work. Um, I have a Actually, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question I've been asking people. It's kind of a sneak, uh, project. So, uh, this is the question. If I asked you if 5 years from now, however it happened, the Gallatin Valley was being suddenly looked at as a beacon of resilient life, resilient community. You've had a lot of conversations now here on the podcast, and you've been in this community, and you've been touching a lot of different kinds of people. And so, what for you, if this happened, if this were true, what for you shows up as the most powerful, pivotal element that made the biggest impact?
Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show. So, what made the biggest impact in making this
Mhm,
community a beacon?
mhm. Something that where other people are looking at this like, "Whoa, like, we wanna look at this place, see how this happened." What's the most alive point that creates this the fastest? If if change were made there.
Do you have an answer to this?
I've been collecting a lot of
Okay,
answers.
I'm gonna say off the cuff, our ability to make time to listen to each other.
Mm. Mhm.
And I was just sort of having this conversation of the amount of people I've sat down with, and we were like talking about politics and different things, and it's not something that I mind talking about, but it's not something that comes up a lot either,
Mhm,
and it seems like it's such a low level thing to have discourse and disagreement, but, when you get further down, you can really feel the humanity and that, like, the connection, the community is there. Like, I could say I have a very strong community with people from all walks of life, so many different religious, political backgrounds, and that's so that's such kinda just low level stuff, such petty things. So I think when you could just sit down and get down a little bit lower and listen, that's when I almost say get lower, like, into your body, and you feel that connection to a person,
mm,
and I think that I don't know, it's a warm feeling. That would be my answer. Uh, I I'll stick with that because
okay.
I could think about it for a while,
Right,
but I'll
yeah,
go with that. So
yeah,
I think our ability to listen would help us just understand, and I don't know, I would almost say that I could see that too. Like, I could see why people would say that about this community now.
uh-huh,
I'm a little bit biased, and I could see people also say that, there's concerns that that could be lost, and that was here because of, so much
mhm.
growth and
Okay, quick follow-up question then. If there could be a significant shift forward on that front, what do you think of? Like, what creates or feeds that?
I think more stuff in person with people.
Mhm,
And I've always said this is sort of my bias, but I just love sitting down in person with people. And
mhm,
I there's so much convenience, and it's so awesome that we have technology to, for this to reach people and to reach people on the other side of the world or the country. But I I don't think there's something that can take the place of sitting down in that community.
mhm,
So that'd
yeah.
be my follow-up answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I've asked this of mayors and guys on the street corner and teachers and moms and mountain rescuers and one of the fun things over time is that you find some interesting bedfellows, right? People who are really diverse from each other, but who have the same answer,
Mhm.
right? And those people, if they knew about each other, could collaborate, right? So that's makes it really fun. And then I want people asking this question, right? Because the more people ask that question, the more it actually moves us towards it.
Yeah.
That's why it's a nice sneak question. But if there's more of this on the ground, right? What are all the different vessels in which that could show up? You're also reminded me of one of my resilience games is called Listening with Your Bones.
Interesting. So how does it work?
um, actually, that particular one, actually, I could share it with you if you want to
Sure.
add a link to it. It's a, and because I have a library of resilience games. And but this one at heart, it's about an invitation to um, a borrowed imaginary experience of where you find out that actually we don't listen with our ears, we actually listen with our skeletons. And so you then, as you go out into the world and you have your next conversation with someone, you have that whole conversation listening with your whole skeleton
Okay.
and you notice what happens. And if anything changes in you or in how they respond or what you actually do hear or don't,
Is there a common response, or is it very, like,
it's really broad.
interesting? Yeah,
But
if
it
you
does result in a different listening, which
yeah.
is right there something else.
I'll say from having these conversations and listening back to them, I don't always listen to them all back in full, but I do pretty often listen to them back while they're editing, and
Mhm.
it's let me tapped into a side of myself that I'm almost unconscious to,
Yeah.
and little nuances and speech patterns, and to really be present when you're speaking and listening is, uh, I think it's a skill that you learn and get better and better at, but
Mhm.
it takes a lot of focus and intention. because
There's
it's
so many games around it. It's really fun, uh, and it's so rich in outcomes, both the listening to yourself, as you say, and also listening to other people differently. And even if you did it like 10% of the time differently than you do it right now, your relationships will change.
yeah.
Like, this isn't actually really extreme, um, effort stuff, but it's high ease, high impact, which I have a high radar for a lot of the time.
I was just talking with me and my fiance were just talking about this a couple days ago, and I think about it. I think we always think that our times are like the best or the hardest or the worst, but
Yeah,
there's there's so much opportunity for distraction.
yeah.
And we were kind of talking about, am I listening to too many podcasts, almost taking in so much
Mhm.
content that I can't even process my own thoughts, and it's weird to be in a spot where I'm like less is so much more. Like
Mhm.
this, someone said had a quote: the answers you're seeking is in the silence you're avoiding." I was like, yeah, that.
Yep. There's, so many directions to go. Uh, my brain's like, "Candy store."
Mine too, because I could go back to the lake and ask you 25 more questions.
So I have a thing called, that I call, resilience triage, and it started, years ago when I was flying across the country and into San Francisco, and I sat next to a man in a suit the whole way across, and we didn't talk, as happens sometimes. And he we're coming in on the final leg and over the bay, and he turns to me and he says, "So, what do you do?" I was laughing and I said, "I I I think I said something like I build resilient humans." And he reached over and with both hands he grabbed my arm and he said, "Give me the short runway version." I was like, "That's a great assignment." Like, I don't, what do I say? And I said, "Okay, here, right? I got you. Like, we're gonna do this." And so I said, um, in a in a stressful situation, right? In a time when you would benefit from having more resilience than having less. Um, First, you ask this question, which is, how in this situation could I add more space? How could I add more spaciousness? Either where is there tightness? Where is there constriction? Right? And say, you know what, uh, I could add space right now by um, I could add space right now by requesting that we shift a deadline. I could add space by taking a step back from this human who's standing too close to me. I can add space in my rib cage. Like, take a deep breath. Like, where are things like, and and just and then the second question you could ask is, where's a system I could add health to? There's already systems at play. They have momentum. And if I can tweak any of these systems that are at play and make them more healthy, then those systems are going to run forward without me. So it's really nicely leveraged, right? And so a system could be, well, the problem right now might be in like our hiring setup. So how can I change the questions that in our hiring process so that this kind of thing doesn't happen as much? Um, I need to drink a bunch of water right now. That would be this ecosystem. Um, I we How we communicate our plans in this family perhaps could be fixed so that we don't find ourselves like this. And then the last question is, where could we add some lightness? Where are things darker than they need to be? Where are things heavier than they need to be? And so it and all of these can be answered on from the most practical level to the most metaphorical level. So it could be like, we actually need more flashlights, right? Or can I help you carry those bags? Or tell a joke at your own expense, or take someone else a little bit less seriously. And so if at that point you have asked and inserted, because there will always be answers that show up. You have inserted, um, you have inserted spaciousness into what's moving forward. You've inserted healthier systems into what's moving forward, and you've inserted lightness. And regardless of anything else, this situation is going to unfold differently than it would have otherwise. And so, the nature of resilience can be really beautifully iterative and responsive. Um, it can involve changing small things that then result in large results, and it's a beautiful dance. And then also just add water. That's another bonus that you could do. But I've had people use this, 8 miles in the backcountry in the middle of the night with 2 missing kids, and I've had people use it in conference rooms, and I've used it, with sheep.
Hmm.
And so, um, it's a lovely way to change the impact that you're having by being in the world or by being in the room. And not incidentally, actually, by asking those kinds of questions, you're moving the activity in your own brain out of the lizard brain zone and more forward into your prefrontal cortex. And so, which is better at problem solving in general. So it's a nice way to invite yourself to be less reaction or panic prone.
When the whole time you're saying this, I've got this beautiful lake in my head, and I'm thinking, how do I automate something? And I'm like, well, maybe every day I'm carrying a bucket of water over here, and
Yeah.
I just divert this little stream,
Uh-huh.
and then it's just naturally flowing there.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a few branches I need to trim, and there's some more sunlight coming in, and
See?
that's all I'm thinking.
Yeah. This is how it works,
Mhm.
right? That that your lake becomes really real to you, and then it tells you stuff, and then you can transpose that into real life, right? So, um, I've had people say things like, "Oh, there was a mountain slide, right, over on the side of my lake, and that whole side is really muddy now." And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "So, how's that working for you?" And they're like, "I think I need to do this. I want to do this." So it's both beautifully diagnostic and then self-prescriptive, right? Because you start to have ideas about what would support a return to balance and beauty. And there's a lovely element to it that a lake naturally will, after disruption, return to a new form of life and interconnected life. Uh, and as you pointed out, the ups and downs of a lake are natural. And I had a really lovely thing happen early on when I was teaching this to a fire station. And a lot of first responder communities and doctors and practitioners and veterans, there's a very stoic culture. And so by giving everybody the common language of a lake, which would allow them to evaluate the impact of trauma, of stress and stress injury, um, before, when I went back and checked with the chief, he said before I could know that something was up or wrong or not okay with someone, and I could go and I could check in with them, and I'd be like, "How's it going?" And they'd be like, "Good, doing the work." And the conversation's kind of over. And because saying anything different would sound from the inside um, like I'm failing, I'm not enough, and so you can't say it. And he said afterwards we were able to have conversations where I could check in with someone and they could say, "Water level's a little low." And because it's just one step removed from your, I don't know, your ego, right? Or your stories that you're telling in your brain about how you should be. And it allowed them to be with each other in very different way.
When you say that stoic, nature.
Yeah.
I think that, I'll only speak for myself personally because I can't speak for anyone else, but I've had that a lot and, like, probably still get that, "Oh, you've got this, like, stoic energy," and, like, I've realized as I've gotten a little bit older and gotten to know myself better that
Mhm.
a lot of that is a lot of disassociation,
Yeah.
and there's almost an appeal to it because it's kinda like, I'm just yeah, like, I can whatever's gotta be done will get done, and I can do it, and then I've kinda realized, "Oh, I'm kinda closing off a large part of myself," and
Yeah.
I've r um, I'll still take the stoicism hat sometimes and, like, yeah,
Mhm.
I have that calm nature to myself, but I also wanna make sure that I'm not just, like, shutting off
Yeah.
all that discomfort and everything else that
I think it's so important to recognize that, when we disassociate, when we numb, when we put on layers and layers and layers of armor, um, we do this because we need it. Like, we do it because it's a response that is meeting an immediate need, without which, in that moment, we might shatter or implode. And so holding space for those responses being very normal, very real, and and without which we might not survive or we feel like we wouldn't, right? And but then from the next level, right, we can start to discern not only that we're doing this and that it's normal, but also start to recognize the costs of doing it without reflexively, right? Doing it without thinking, and that we do separate ourselves from others, and we separate ourselves from what's real. And like it or not, we are all living on farms surrounded by wilderness. And there are the things that we can cultivate and fence and take care of and invite to happen on a timetable. And we will always be surrounded by wilderness that where we are not in control. And our capacity to be in relation with both um, allows us to venture beyond our own fences. And ideally, we're doing this with others, right? We're not designed to do all of that um, to heal solo. And so we take on wilderness guides, right?
ooh, I like this.
And people who have walked these paths before and still survived and who are humble, um, not arrogant, but who will take us out beyond where we've been before and invite us into new experiences, allow us to build up some more of our own capacity to change what resilience and wilderness are for us, and then to bring us home safe until next time.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think of it when you say that, we do it to keep ourselves safe, and it's a really useful tool, and then, like, at least for myself, I could speak to it then turns into an identity at some point,
Mhm.
and I think that when at least for me, to some level, I think I've learned when to use that tool and when to put it down, and so this is an evolution and process, but I think that is at least I'll only speak for myself again, where I've gotten hung up is it just that becomes the identity now.
Yeah.
The sort of the defense or the armor
Mhm.
becomes the daily identity, and then it's kind of like relearning that you're okay and you're not,
Yeah.
in this danger.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine for those, first responders, military, that's naturally you're gonna
Mhm.
want to keep that armor on, rightfully so,
Yeah.
given what you're doing on a daily basis.
And it works until it costs too much,
Yeah.
right? So it works until it doesn't. And it's I think if you're really courageous about facing the armor that you have, and just ascertaining if it's all actually really still needed. Um, I don't need the tools I needed 20 years ago. and or 30, and, but I might still have them as habit, and that's it might not cost me until I am courageous enough to put myself in the company. Like, if you're really brave, you spend a bunch of time with either children or animals, or you have a really big dream, which is going to ask of you to be a different kind of leader than you have been being, or you fall in love. And all of those are going to be really beautiful invitations um, to remove your armor and discover a kind of strength that is based um, in fluidity. Um, and and on the other side, what's waiting for you is joy. And if you are living a life without it, I think it's probably one of the biggest indicator species of resilience. Joy is a lot easier to chase away. It's a wilderness creature. We can't say, I'm going to go feel joyful right now. But we can create habitats in ourselves where it chooses to circle back around consistently and persistently, or through other practices or habits. We design a habitat that it chooses to stay away from until something changes. So if a company, for example, if someone tells me how resilient their company is and there is not any joy in the hallways, I start to get really curious what's actually happening.
I really like that phrase of using those different life situations as an invitation
Mm,
to remove the armor.
yes.
I was having a conversation somewhat similar to this, but me and I was telling my buddy different challenges and things I'm going through with the business, and it's teaching me a lot. And it's they've been great challenges, and he's talking about some of his work challenges, and we were saying, man, if it wasn't our businesses, I think it'd be like I think life will always give you those opportunities or those invitations,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like this is the canvas I'm using to
Yeah.
help that's presenting those invitations. And I see it as the invitation. I can push it away, and then it will reluctantly reluctantly reappear again and again, and it's cool. That's a beautiful way to look at it, as an invitation like that.
Well, I don't think it's reluctant. I think it's like, I like to think of emotions and thoughts as visitors that show up on your doorstep, right?
Maybe persistent was the word I was
Oh, yeah,
looking for.
yeah. And they knock and they're like, "Here I am." And and very often, the minimum that they want is they want acknowledgement, right? So we're talking about like basic host courtesy, that if you're out in your world and all of a sudden grief, knocks on the door and says, "Hi, here I am," you may or may not be able to press a pause button and go off and do whatever it wants to do. Like, I want to go, on a long hike right now. I want to be alone. I want to be with other people. I want to eat cheesecake, whatever the thing is, right? And, but even if you just say, "I see you here on the doorstep, come in. Would you like a glass of water? I can't do anything right now, but maybe we could go out this evening, or I could take some time this weekend and we can spend some time together." And, and it's not that it's controlled by us, but that um, it it needs it needs just that at a bare minimum, right? And instead, there are times when we have and will again, we open the door and there it is, and we slam the door, and run and hide in the closet, and but it won't stop. And I think the more honor that we give things while recognizing that they aren't us, um, we give ourselves a chance to move forward in a way that both is where we can have and be grace and power at the same time.
You're making me think of this guy, Joe Hudson. I told you I'd followed some of
Mhm.
his content, and I'm gonna try to get this quote right because he said it a bunch of times. Joy is the matriarch of a family of emotions, and she will not come into a house where all her children are not welcome.
Yes.
When you're saying they knock on the door, I'm like, "Shoot," like, you're gonna pull the quote right out of me because
Yeah.
that's that's yeah,
Mhm.
exactly, I think what you're saying, and it's the yeah, I just no one's home, I'm not answering that door.
Mhm. Yeah. We do our best,
Turn the volume
right?
let me just turn
I
the
mean,
TV up, I can't even hear the knocks
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. We do our best, and if we go back to that word invitational, right? That perhaps something really extraordinary can happen, at some point when we're ready and the knock of the door happens and we say, "Yeah, let's go." And maybe grief takes us up on top of a mountain and plays amazing violin for us, and we come back down changed in the best kind of way. And so we can be open to invitations taking us places we haven't thought of even.
I know use some examples with different companies. Do you work with like adolescents or children at all with any of
Mm.
this work?
Yeah, I do some. Mostly more recently, I'm doing a lot more with, well, probably the 2 lenses that I'm doing most with are leaders and women,
Okay.
um, some of whom are adolescents.
I
Yeah.
say that as I ask the 34-year-old man because I'm
Mhm.
thinking, I bet you this could resonate so well with a child. This
Oh,
this lake analogy.
I have taught it to 2nd graders. I have taught it I mean, I raised my children in it, and I have taught it to, um, like, 94-year-olds. It's we are we are nature, and so if we are going to choose models that help us navigate through life, they have to be models that have inherent movement in them, that are organic themselves. And so this invitation is one that puts us in the lake that springs to mind for each of us, right? All I can say is that it's a beautiful lake, right? And what shows up in your brain is what's the most useful and meaningful and alive and invitational, right? So I had someone ask me once, like, "I'm from Hawaii. Can this be I'm like, "It's your lake."
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's um, the universality of learning through uh, natural systems. I, I teach as much as possible outside. Um, if I have a company say like, "What do you need to come teach people?" I'm like, "Can we be outside?" That's the first thing. If we can't be outside, can there be big windows? And ideally, I do a lot where I bring people to our farm on the river and down into an aspen grove and where there's a lot of life happening all around us, and I can teach a natural resilient system, and then I can point over and like, see over there, that's it in action, and and the land will teach with a density that I can't even approach.
Yeah, and it's timeless. Like
Mhm.
when I'm thinking if it
Yeah,
of how this would resonate with a
yeah.
kid and you're saying or a
Well,
94-year-old.
and it's cross-cultural,
Yeah.
and it cross ages, and it cross faiths, and
Yeah,
yeah,
you so
it
universal.
has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be, or it's exclusive, and that creates fragility. That's a fragile system if
Yeah.
you design it in. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like and you're as you were using Hawaii, there's so many
Mhm.
different versions because
Yeah.
there's so many different climates.
Mhm.
And there's kind of every you know, everything is adapted to its climate just as we have. So
Yeah. I lived in the, Grand Tetons when I was tiny 'cause of my dad, and, I mean, my lake, that immediately springs to mind, it's got pikas, and it's got elk, and it has osprey, and like like, so I'm very clear about this lake, but, uh, every other person has a very clear, lake for themselves.
yeah, one that like I don't know this whatever this lake is I'm imagining. Um, I wonder how many metaphors and epiphanies there are in it, but I'm like, it's not. I don't think it's somewhere I've been before, but it feels very unique
Yeah.
to me. So it's
Yeah, it can be, yeah, like that. It can be one that you imagine or one that you've been to. I think it is very important, though, when I invite people to do this, that you that what comes into being in you is really astonishingly beautiful, and because that's how I see people, and and we start from beauty, and then we can navigate and or reverse engineer back into it towards it. And so that's what generates a lot of how I teach, but also even what I say. Um, and and some people have fallen out of the knowing of themselves as beautiful, and re-inviting that framework is beautifully healing all by itself.
I can feel that if like I'll just say just meeting you today, I can feel the purity coming from your lake. You just so you're living what you're teaching.
Thank you. That makes me very happy. I'm glad.
You brought up kids. I think I saw something on your website. Did it say you have feral kids?
Uh-huh. How did I say it? Yeah. Slightly feral.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. In fact, it's funny because I had a great long conversation with someone about being slightly feral, and the question I asked her was, oh yeah, I said, if you when you think about yourself at work or parenting, if you had the spaciousness and permission to be slightly feral in that's like what? and and at first it was a big like, no, like I can't be feral. But uh again, it's that line that we can dance back and forth across between wilderness and and the tame. And because the tame actually, everything that we think is tame and safe and in control actually isn't. So that's occasionally a useful thing to acknowledge. And so much of what is out in the wilderness is astoundingly beautiful and or healing. And so for her, feral had such a uh, boxed meaning that even just by opening the box a little bit and saying feral can be playful, and feral can be have agency, and feral is when you get to let your freak flag fly some. What is
Mhm.
that like, and what happens, and how is that great for you in your work and in your life? And uh, yeah, if that disappeared for me, then my work would be different.
I I think of this question and I almost get the answer because I think we're I'll just speak for myself. um as as humans, it's so interesting to like have all this reluctance to ever like step into that feral side or that freak
Mhm.
field. And then like we all, at least I keep saying we all, and I'm going back to myself because I don't want to speak for everyone else, but
It's a good habit.
but just knowing that like, there's always this front of everything's so organized and with inside the fence, and then there's always this longing you know, to get to that side, and then
Yeah,
that's where that connection is. And I say the question's almost answered because I think of polarity, and that's just sort of how the world works. Is we um like it's what's beautiful about us is that we have this front, but we want that side. If it, like you couldn't have one without the other.
Mhm.
So I have
No.
this appreciation for it, but I still am like, man,
Yeah.
it never fails.
I think, we create these distinctions and they allow us to see things we've never seen before. And then I think ideally, and a lot of the time, if we give things the space, then at some point we might recognize or come to a feeling that they're actually all the same thing. that that it's really useful for us to separate and put things in different boxes, and it's helpful again until it's not. And but but in the process of taking things apart, in the same way that we might call a council table of all of our voices, as a result of doing that over time, beautifully, we show up as in the world and in ourselves as someone who is just beautifully whole
Mhm.
in a way that won't ever be um, approached by someone who doesn't acknowledge the variety of voices. So it's a beautiful practice, I think. But
Yeah,
as long as we're not holding on to it tightly beyond its actual use.
I I think I'm getting better about this. At least I hope I am, and I'm telling myself I am. But what's the best way to say it? I come from the more feral sides, growing up on a farm.
Right?
So I'll find myself going into situations, and for lack of a better word, sometimes I'll use the word pretentious.
Yeah,
I'll think I don't want to go to this event or this whatever it's going to be, and I'll when I'm in my in my best wisdom, I'll say, you think this all the time, and then you go and you're refreshed by
mm,
you meet some incredible people, and
yeah,
it's like I just had to remind myself that look, you're a human, everyone else is a human, so we all have these different, um, we've got these kind of social norms and societal norms that we exist in,
yeah,
and so I have to give it a chance. I have to like give both sides a chance, but it's an evolution.
yeah. I mean, I think, if we go back to this question of how we are adding aliveness and resilience into the world, right? And I would look at what you're doing right now as you you answered your question with what you're already doing. That you if someone asked someone else entirely, how do we add more deeply present listening with a broad variety of people outside of our own natural circle, right? And you could ask 10 people and come up with 10 different things that could contribute to that here in this valley. And one of them would be to start a podcast and to be the kind of person who other people can just beautifully feel comfortable saying just about anything to.
I hope so.
Yes, right? And to do the work to create the structure so it doesn't have to be invented. Um, and and to stay open through that whole process, which I think can be felt by others. So you're doing important work here.
Thank you. So somebody just asked this who's a business owner about starting a podcast, and they said, "What do you think? What's been your experience?" And I said, if you really want to, like, if you feel like you really want to do it, like, definitely do it. Like, do not do it just to do it because it's like it's way more work than you think.
Mhm.
But it, I don't know. It's something beyond me now. At this point, it just has its own life, and
Yeah,
I show up and like click a few buttons, and um, but yeah, it's been cool. So thank you for saying that, and
yeah.
this is I'm gonna say it right back at you because like I told you I can feel it from you, and my fiance told me about you so many times that I had you like I thought has told me about 4 different people, but they were all you. I think I think it's I think it's every time I think you guys met at Skyora, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's every time she'll come back from one of them, tell me this and tell me that. And I'm like, man, there's all these incredible people, but it was just the same person. Uh, because it was she built resilient humans in the lake metaphor. Literally thought you've already taken on two entire people. So, and that's just, I'm probably missing three other times she's told me. How old are your kids now?
18 and 20.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I put the second one on the plane 2 days ago,
Okay.
heading out for the whole summer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big too, because
It
you were
is.
saying they'll invite these these opportunities, but that's like a whole new invitation, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been in Bozeman?
Almost 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
called you here?
I moved here on my third date with my husband.
Oh, cool.
I was living up in the San Juan Islands in Washington with family, and uh, came out here to visit my sister, and we met for the first time, and the third time I moved here.
So you moved here on your third date?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I feel like nobody's ever said that before.
Turned out well.
Yeah. There's so many like, oh, I moved here with so and so and we're not together anymore, but that's why I'm here now. But that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been here 30, yeah. So you were here in the 90s sometime. That was late 90s.
98. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've been farming west of town for, I guess, almost 22 years now. And it's another arena of learning and teaching. Asking what is it to have a regenerative farm? What is it to have a farm that where you're continually asking how all of the systems can have multiple roles in supporting all of the other systems. How to support the soil so that things happen that are astonishing. How to have animals that a lot of species that can interact with each other as much as possible in ways that are interesting and useful and healthy for each other. And then also, how do we have a really deep intimacy with what we put, what we touch every day, how we are in relation with other species, how we eat, um, how aware we are of the implications of being a human in a vastly interconnected world that is, in a lot of cases, not inviting health. That in order to be healthy in a lot of this, world and culture, that we have to be actually subversive. So how do we want to raise children? What kind of children do we want to add into the world, so that they can add health in their own ways? And how do we invite independence and kindness? And, I don't know, sass, probably a fair amount.
Sass. You definitely helpful and needed, I would say. So your kids grew up on this farm, and what are you guys raising on the farm?
We're kind of toning it down this year, actually, partly because the children are, we have fewer humans on them, but it's been milk cows, Irish Dexters, Irish Dexters, and then Icelandic sheep, Icelandic chickens, and then also we've had ducks and turkeys, bees, Czech hunting dogs, pigs, rabbits, fish.
So
gardens.
So you guys, are you milking the cows still or no?
I do milk a cow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I grew up on a dairy farm. So
okay, there you go. Yeah. We have a few too many cows right now. We have 4 pregnant cows, 2 of which have already calved. And then, but my own personal milk cow, Malina, she's just my darling. So she's still pregnant. So we'll start milking again when that one comes.
It's a lot of work. It's a commitment if you're milking a cow every day.
It is, but it's it's kind of a neat thing to think about because I think we all, you know, a lot of us choose a thing that is in someone else's eyes, it's harder, right? Like I could go buy the milk, be a lot easier, and not unaffordable, and yet I choose to wake up in the morning and to get a bucket and cloths and soap ready, and I walk out into the morning and I tie her up next to her calf who's been in a little pen next to her but separated from her all night.
Mhm.
And then we have, in some cases what ends up being almost a mini adventure, right? It's um I've written about a book actually about these moments, and um some of them really weird, right? And then some of them just beautifully sensory, right? And and then we milk together, and then I walk back up to the house with this full bucket, and that milk gets chilled and filtered and put into the fridge and then turned into cheese and coffee and beautiful desserts and drunk by my children, and this fills my lake. So understanding individually the true nature of what empties and what fills you. For the next person over, that would be a big empty. Like I have to milk every day and I don't want to,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, that's actually not building a sustainable system.
Or I was forced to milk
Right.
all my
Yes. Right.
life as a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah. And someone else chooses to bike to work,
Yeah.
right, all the way to town, and somebody else. Um, so really understanding what beautifully fills you and what is deep and what's shallow, right? And ultimately we're looking at what's the balance, right? Are we persistently pouring out more than we can refill? Um, are we maybe filling and not pouring out into the world, and so we end up with kind of a weird algae stagnant lake? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the nature of the lake that you would really love to have, that involves a beautiful movement of water and provides really interesting support for other life around you that you're not in control of, and then taking active steps to play with how that shows up, and then course correcting, right, making it iterative.
Yeah, I really like that you used the word regenerative farm.
Mm.
And Matt Skoglin, he runs North Bridger Bison.
Mhm.
He did the podcast a while ago and he said that same thing. And I guess I'd heard it, but I hadn't thought it till he said it because a lot of people will say sustainable.
Mhm.
And he's like, if you do think if we're just sustaining, he's like, he's like, how can we get the nature to regenerate? And that's
Yeah.
like, that's a healthy ecosystem.
Mhm.
So there's so many directions you could go with that, but yeah, when that is when you're thinking holistically like that and back to the lake, because even in that sense, if you're in the floodlands too, like if this is like it can become a swamp, and then it's like you can't sustain a lot. So it is interesting to think that like in some sense it could all be sort of flowing to the wrong place, and like there could be a surplus, and it's interesting to think of. I'll just my head will keep going to these
Mhm. Love it.
this
Yeah,
nature or farm.
this is how you do it. I love
Yeah.
that you're doing that.
But the and back to the milk, um, so spoiled too if you grow up drinking raw milk.
So
Eh,
good.
yeah, that's what did your kids what'd you do for education with your kids?
Mhm. They went to local schools here.
Okay,
Yeah. So, um, they didn't always love it. Um,
the school,
yeah.
yeah,
They and, it's not that there aren't options we could have pursued, but, I mean, I'm an educator, so, we could have even done more. But I think, we're in this world, and that is not of our choice, and for us to have them be able to be in a world where they were needing to be with and see and work with others, and at the same time, be provided a rich, um, interior and physical life, uh, on the farm, and then traveling. My husband's uh, an outdoor photographer, so he's
Okay.
all over the world a lot. So, um, it felt like a decent balance of of giving them things that are important to have in the world. Yeah, when you're so that you can go out as a regenerative human.
That's very well put. Me and a friend of mine's got some young kids, and I don't have any kids, so I'm an armchair parent at this. I'm
Mhm.
just telling him, I'm like, "Hey, man, you're doing the work." But so me and all my siblings were homeschooled.
Yeah.
All my siblings went to public school when they got older towards high school, and I didn't.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important what you said, because there's a world you're going to function in. You kind of
Mhm.
can't, like, I mean, you can do whatever you want. So I'm careful with that word
Mhm.
can't, but if you're raised in such isolation, it can be pretty hard to show up and exist in the world.
Mhm.
And as someone who sits down here a couple times a week and has conversations, it took me that was a one of the biggest hurdles for me, was
Really?
this social anxiety and this ability to talk to people.
Ah,
So naturally I sought out talking to people a lot, but
yeah,
so I wouldn't change anything. But
yeah,
like I do think that, I want to have kids and I'm getting married soon, is, where's that balance? And I'm sure I'll never get it right, but at least
yeah,
to have some intention to, um, like, how can you learn those valuable lessons on a farm? But like, there's also a world to exist in. And I think we all, going back to that connection and community, we all want to know, like, how can we show up and exist and be ourselves and be accepted all at the same time?
yeah.
So yeah, what an awesome opportunity any kids can have, I can speak to. And like I said, half the time I think I presented it, and
Uh-huh. Oh,
I
yeah.
I was saying this to I remember saying this to myself. I don't know if I said it out loud when I was a kid. Why can't we just be like all the normal families?
Uh-huh.
Why do we have to
Right?
work every
I know,
day?
right?
But
Yeah, right? And I think I think one of the loveliest things that we can give our children um, is sovereignty, more sovereignty than we might think. That really, from the very beginning, you know, without letting them run the boat, right? But to really be just really curious about them um, and 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 respect that them as much as we can, and that they are already, you know, really thinking and processing, to really let them get muddy, really let them get into messes. Um, I remember my dad, wanting to climb a tree, and my dad asking me, "Can you down climb?" And it was just, I've always loved that, just because he didn't lift me into the tree, he didn't tell me I couldn't or that I had to. Um, it was just this single invitation to think ahead a little bit and make any requests, and
yeah,
so yeah.
I know I heard this on a podcast, and I was, but like, for quite a few years, really into martial arts here, and I
Mhm.
trained a lot Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then I was coaching kids classes, and I did the CAP mentorship program here with kids. And I think the most valuable thing what it was that I heard on the podcast was, and I've always done it, and like, I love kids, but is
Yeah.
I talk to them like adults,
Yeah.
like humans. And
Yeah.
I I don't know, because sometimes they're smarter than me anyway.
Oh, yeah.
There's they don't have all the walls up that I do, so they
Mm.
can just tap into their brilliance sometimes, and their
Mhm.
wit and their humor and everything else. And I think kind of what you're saying is, yeah, like, just Don't let me get in your
You
way.
better stay real with them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're just phenomenal mirrors.
My mother said that to me. She said, "Yeah, at some point, she was speaking to me and my siblings. I remember, like, one of you guys or all of you guys are driving me crazy, and then I realized you're just doing the same things I do." So that sucks.
Uh-huh, right? You're like, "Damn."
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that I guess that's as you were saying, the kids can be the invitation to
Oh, yeah.
take that armor off or see yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. I think I can very clearly and definitely say that, um, maybe about 10 years ago 10 years ago, 10 I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, I had a really clear invitation to face, um, the reappearance of existing trauma that popped up its head up again. It was like, "Here I am." And I'd gotten kind of complacent. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing pretty good." And here I am. I'm happy and I'm building things and I'm leading a life. And then all of a sudden there it was, just evidence of like there's still stuff that is hurting. And uh and wasn't going to be ignored. And interestingly, at that point, you know, be, my first impulse was like, okay, well, I'll just get through this, right? And plus, you know, I have this big toolbox of resilience things, and so shouldn't I be fully armed, like ready? And so, coming to a place of like, no, actually, this is more than my current toolbox can handle, and we aren't supposed to heal alone, I don't think. And so, if I can, find the right team, to take this step, but the real impetus at that point was recognizing that, a couple of years from now, my children will be reaching the age I was when I was on that mountain. And either I can heal these things in myself now more and let them have a clean slate when we all hit that moment, or I can shove it down. And potentially that could show up any number of ways with them when they hit 16. I could be overprotective. I could be shoving them out in the world. Anyway, all of these things that are not really being with who they were and what their world is. It would all be bouncing around, ricocheting off of me. And so it was a really powerful and lovely chance to bring more health into the ecosystem that I am, um, out of love for them and the possibility of them being able to live a life that was theirs and not mine.
That's so cool. I think of the phrase I've heard, like, because everything's evolving is, new levels brings new devils.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
right? That's the game.
and yeah, and it's like you've got this toolbox, and it's like, yeah, your opponent keeps leveling up alongside you,
Yeah.
being life.
But one of my assignments for my students is, I actually just recently found this assignment, but again, after a long time, but it was to sit down and write 20 problems that you want to have. And because a lot of the messes we get into are because we think, I'm going to work through all this, I'm going to do all this stuff, and then I won't have the problems. Never been true and never will be true. So, really designing for a life that has the kinds of problems that we are going to find the most interesting, the most real, the most meaningful, um, that are really beautiful, detailed descriptors of also who we are, right? And what we're after, what we want to create in the world, and then you end up with this very three-dimensional future instead of one which is kind of blank and like it's going to be fine, or I'll solve it all. Um, And you end up with these, really fun, crazy, visions of like messes that you want to get into, or that if you did get into them, you would know you would be living this great life.
That you're making me think of, some of the concept and some of the reasons I got into martial arts is
Hmm.
like some people will say just as humans is we like solving problems.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I don't know if it's, subjective to men or women or just humans in general, but I like because sometimes you will just make up pretty random problems if there's nothing else going on. So this, to go, to have this workout or this, like you solve some complex problems being survive because your opponent's trying to kill you, and then you're like, it sort of changes your perspective a little bit on like, oh well, maybe I don't need to have those petty problems. So, um, and I think like even that, and even I'll speak for myself, there's so much value in that, like to a point, and then at some point it's like I could just focus on these problems I'm creating every day because but there
Hmm.
are some so it was like it was a step of the evolution, um, and I haven't trained in the last year, and I like some of the guys that have been training for so long, and I'll catch up with them. They're like, "Hey man, there's different seasons to your life," and they're like, "And this gym will always be here, so don't." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I appreciate that wisdom so much, and the seasons because it's back to nature. There are those seasons when there's the value there, and there's seasons when I'm getting married and doing other things. So
That's like a part-time job right there.
yeah. So what if somebody wants to work with you? Like, what's the scope of what you're doing as far as working with individuals,
Hmm.
businesses, etc.?
Yeah. Um, the work that I'm loving right now is from, well, I love having someone come out and work with me for a day on the farm. And we end up, usually in those cases, we would end up mapping a lake in the morning. And just one, it just gets them away, right, from their world and out into a place that has a lot of beauty and where they're being taken care of and eating foods from the gardens. And then we can make this map that where they actually can really see all of these pieces and how they're interacting with each other. And and then we have lunch and maybe go down to the river. And in the afternoon, we what starts arising is, so what? Right? What do I want from here? What would be amazing? And and then, I might bring in some of the curated things from the toolbox depending on what actually is going on, like where there's struggle. Um, and and someone can come out of one of those days in a really different place. So those are really, really satisfying and fun. And then I work with people one on one over several months, 4 months usually. So that's individual work, um, and it's a pretty broad spectrum of kinds of people and kinds of projects, which makes me happy. um, and then last year, and then I do speaking and writing and consulting um, for organizations. I The organizations one's kind of interesting because uh, I prefer to work with the leadership of the organization first before I am willing to be brought in to teach everybody.
Uh-huh.
Um, if the people who are leading it aren't living with a certain amount of integrity around owning the resilience agents that are in there, then I can go and teach everybody else and it will help. But it's they have to be willing to do what they're wanting taught.
So you're saying let me go find this lake that is supplying this organization before I start trying to correct everything like
Yeah.
downstream of this
Right.
lake.
Yeah.
Sure. Makes complete
Yeah. There
sense.
has to be commitment. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Interestingly, I've had some situations where I've gone into an organization and I've taught one or more of the kind of parts of it. And then ideally I'm teaching all the levels. But like I went and taught one of the big senior living centers here, and taught um, I gave resilience tools to all the staff. And if the staff well-being goes up, then retention goes up, and they're much more relaxed and present in being with the residents. So then residents' well-being goes up. And then if I work with the residents, which I did, then we have fewer hospital calls, and we have fewer complaints, and we have more agency and more sovereignty on their part. Like, hey, I'm not just like dumped in here. Like, I have a lot to say about what my quality of life is here. And and then working with the leadership with like both for their own resilience, like how well am I able to be through time? Um, am I actually currently designing for burnout?
Designing for burnout.
Right? And or how am I designing for drama among others or in myself? And then but also, these larger questions of the current systems, which I am affecting in terms of how everyone's relating to each other. Am I actually designing for fragility, or am I designing for more robustness? And um, so that's really cool. If I added a whole lot of resilience to without adding it to the leadership in any context, that would actually design for potentially what's the word? A revolution?
I thought you were going to say, I worked with all the staff and then they all quit.
Well, it can happen.
Yeah.
I used to get really nervous about it because I would go in and I would come back later on and I would touch base and circle around how things going, and they'd be like, "Well, we lost 2 people," and I would like flinch. But ultimately, the people who left they left because they got clear, and it wasn't a good fit,
Yeah.
and nobody was upset about the whole thing. So I've stopped, being attached to that being a problem. But um, resilience is needs it needs clarity. It needs uh, being present. It needs mindfulness. People who are beautifully resilient are more likely to be able to articulate what they want and what they don't want. And they become harder to manipulate, which is problematic if you're trying to force something into place. So yeah, like if you want to design for well-being, it should ideally this should be a language that crosses all the borders.
And here I am. I'm just going back to the lake again.
Yeah.
Like a clear full lake,
Yeah.
but like a swampy low is like that's the kind of lake that's going to be easy to manipulate
Yeah.
just because it's it's,
Yeah.
it's unclear, it's foggy, it's
Mhm.
muddy, it's
Yeah, and people don't have energy,
yeah,
right? And they know something's wrong, but they're not quite sure what.
yeah.
And or maybe they don't know what their true needs are, so they're not able to say, "This is what crosses my lines." Um, yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, it's really beautiful. It's beautiful regenerative work, and um, I'm proud of it.
And a lot of this that you're doing, is part, or at least part of this, I'll say, because I don't want to speak for you, stems from this tragedy that you
Mhm.
experienced as you were young,
Yeah.
and then you went through and were able to like explore and understand this in yourself, and then help other people
Mhm.
explore it and understand it in them.
If If you asked me, like, if I could go back and if I could change it and have it not happen, the answer is yes. I would not have this happen. And just vast amounts of richness that is life to me right now is the direct result of it.
Yeah.
So, um, and we don't have to, and we never actually will be able to pick. So what we can do is we can craft ourselves into a vessel that is vast enough to hold it all. Um, it's like this glass here. If I gave it to you and you were thirsty, and I give you a glass of water right there, and I'm like, here's this glass of water for you, and you're thirsty. And then when you're about to drink it, I reach over and I take a fistful of salt and I just go drop it right into the glass. And you're like, no. You're like, I can't drink this, right? This is not okay. And so maybe you might take a fistful of sugar and drop it in too to help it be better. And it's still really undrinkable at this stage. So this is what, life can hand us, usually at very short notice. And so that was the question that I was faced with at 16 was, how do I deal with being this water with this in it? And I'm supposed to live another 80 years and, you know. And so the answer is a really lovely one. The answer is that we can, over time, make ourselves from this glass into a lake. And a lake can have a fistful of salt dropped into it, and it can hold it.
What a beautiful analogy. Thank you for that.
My most amazing thing that I've done just this last year is I started working with, I created a vessel for what I thought of as people who are already being radiant leaders. That's how they show up in the world. And which means they're already having really astonishing and innovative impact in the world, and they are not doing it with designed in self-sacrifice. And so that they're regenerating themselves and the world at the same time. And so looking at what are these people need, and how is it possible to turn a normal good leader, like someone who has a good life and who is doing good work and who is probably overextended. What are the tools in the toolbox that shift this kind of leader into this other kind of leader who has this real inner spaciousness and a fire, and that doesn't eat themselves. And so I created a fellowship of 12 students for 12 months, and we just finished playing, and it was a roller coaster of a year. It was the challenges that these 12 had show up in their lives were the big ones. All of them unexpected, and and there was one earthquake and tsunami after another.
You had me interested for a second.
Oh no, I mean, I was curious about it, but it was,
Yeah.
we had there were just in addition to what they were doing in their lives, right?
Mhm.
But we also ended up with them meeting up with, there were surgeries, there were big shifts in relationships, there was loss of siblings, there were executive firings, there were like, and the context of being nested in a garden that is growing resilience as each of these things came was this was an illumination of what can happen when we are able to be with hard things in beautifully supported.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the community we were talking about.
Yeah.
I can only imagine
Mhm.
the value and the strength of that
Yeah.
community.
I'm just now even starting the process of interviewing each of them as they about how they see the last year. And it's it's it is so, so beautiful and so much fun, and I'm really excited to do it the next round as well. So that'll be coming up.
It sounds like you're doing so much cool work.
Never bored.
Did you say you've got a published book or no?
It's not published.
Okay.
Yeah, it's finished.
Okay.
So
When's it going to be published?
that's a good I want to self-publish it, and uh, it's a collection of I think of them as lyric micro essays. So in my mind, it's a resilience book, but it's nested in stories from the farm.
Oh, so cool. I know at least a few people who have who have been on the podcast that have published books. I don't know. I'm sure you do too, but if you want any insight on
Thank you.
anything that they did, I'd be more than happy to connect you with them.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to, I know you said you had some videos. Can you can you share those with me so I can link them with this so that
Sure.
people could find them?
I'm thinking of the game that we talked about. Yeah. So I can I'll pick a couple of games and send them to you. Those games that's actually another book, which I haven't. I want the games to be an app. So I originally started it as a book, but I'm making them into an app instead. So, but I'll send some of them to you.
Yeah,
and you
please
can link
do.
them.
I'd love to link them.
Yeah, and people can play.
And I can link your website so people can check out what you're doing.
Yeah.
What is
My website is my name, lorcasmetana.com.
Is there anything else you want to tell the world of that are listening to this podcast? I feel so fortunate to be in this valley and around people like yourself that are doing such incredible things.
Yeah. I can simultaneously be with hard things and have no sense of despair. And because we can be astonished every time we open up our aperture, and we can be dragged down by the magnitude of hard things. And yet there's nothing going on that can't be changed. And the change is the one thing that we can learn to build a beautiful muscular relationship with. So that if we can have an intimate, playful, personal relationship with change itself, then there aren't limits to how this whole world can evolve.
Yeah, I think you're living proof of that. Yeah. What a fun Friday for me. What a treat.
This is very fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having
thank you.
me.
I want to stay in touch, and when you
we will.
when you want to come share some more wisdom, you got an open invitation.
Thank you.
When we started, I was talking about sometimes I'll have the windows open, and I was thinking because you were talking about being outside, and I just thought because I've been thinking about how to reinvent this space, but man, I'd love a space that had windows big enough so that we could just open them and be.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought how I got to do this outside because it's just it is the fuel for my lake.
Yeah.
Is the outdoors, the sunshine, the snow, all of it.
Yeah.
So,
different things happen.
Yeah.
Right? When we're out nested in that. Can you do it? Can you record outside?
Yeah.
Can you have a mobile studio?
Yeah, I would just as long as there's some electricity.
That would be an amazing next level.
Yeah. Well,
or a next evolution of what you're doing.
The seed has been planted.
Excellent.
Yeah. Lorca, thank you so much. I'm excited to share this because I think it'll be very valuable.
This has been really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.